Already. You guys in? Oh, I mean, okay.
No,
Oh, you're okay.
Okay, guys, thanks for joining us today. I'd like to present Samantha Reyes. I'm so excited for her presentation today. She's going to talk a little bit about her 2-second lean. She wasn't able to do it over the summer, and so she's been with us over the winter during her off time for winter break, and she's built a little bit more upon it. So take it away, Samantha.
Yeah, so hello. Again, I'm Samantha. I am the IT intern here at AC Electric. I was IT intern for the summer, as well as the past 4 weeks for the winter. A little bit more about myself is I'm also a senior at Cal State Long Beach, in which I will be graduating in spring. So to first preface this, I would like to go into information about AC. AC is a family-founded company of almost 80 years, and it's a leading electrical contractor in California. We specialize primarily in electrical construction projects, but we also have and solar projects. But we also have a growing pre-construction and technology solution division that allows us flexibility and control when we start pursuing bigger projects. Currently, we are focused mainly in California, but we do want to start branching out into different states. And for our offices, we have 3 in Bakersfield, 1 in Fresno, and 1 in Visalia. So what drives AC? Well, at the forefront, we have our customers. Our customers and building lasting connections with them has and continues to be one of our greatest strengths and is at the forefront of our business. Regardless of the size or complexity of the job, AC always aims to provide consistent, detail-oriented work. And even after jobs are complete, we offer 24/7 service for service needs and emergencies and go the extra mile to ensure that our customers are taken care of and we can take pride in our projects. Additionally, we are very committed to safety, not just providing safety outlines, but growing a culture based around safety. So what this means is that our employees are not just given guidelines, but they're given safety trainings and specialty trainings for specific jobs so that we can have a responsibility at every employee to have safety as a priority. This includes becoming an incident-free company. Besides marginal growth, we are also very focused on growing our employees and our community. This is pretty much the heart and soul of AC, is its employees and focusing on creating a family-centered company. We have programs such as profit sharing, pension plans, and reimbursement on tuition and scholarships, giving our employees peace of mind so that they can grow within our company while still taking care of their families. Moving on to my internship itself. So mine was a little bit unique because I was separate from my team. I was working out of the Fresno office while everyone else was working out of the HQ office. Typically, when you think about a remote internship, you think a lot of negatives. You may feel isolated, you'll have a lack of involvement, and you might not know what you're supposed to be doing at all times because you don't have that constant guidance from being around your team. Luckily, though, this was far from my experience. Even though I was remote, I was very included. I pretty much loved working with the team, and I felt like I was part of it from day one. To facilitate this, we had a lot of daily meetings. So every morning we would talk about what we're going to work on for the day. And then at the end of the day, I would also meet with Karen to talk about what I would be doing next and have any questions or concerns about what I worked on. Additionally, if I had any questions while working on something throughout the day, I was able to reach out to Steven, Melissa, or Karen, and they would help walk me through whatever issue I was having and help me move on to the next processes. Along with my day-to-day work, I also had a lot of projects to work on. So I had a variety in my day-to-day, allowing me to be involved and and really make the most of my internship. And this included working with employees one-on-one in the Fresno office, which kind of helped those feelings of isolation. So moving into the team, I'm going to change the layout real quick so you can see. This is our team. So I work predominantly on the right under Karen, alongside Stephen, Melissa, and our other IT intern, Nolan. But I was lucky enough to be able to meet with, especially during the summer, with Heather and Emily, who form our DevOps team. And I kind of got to see what their side looks like as well, and how their day-to-day is, and a little bit more into their career. So for my day-to-day, these were tasks that would pretty much come up every day and were around the realm of what I should be working on. At the forefront, we have web help desk tickets. These are simply just problems or issues that our users might face. And I would just go about, seeing which tickets I could do, which were in my realm, usually setting up users, setting up computers, fixing printer issues or monitor issues or conference room issues, anything of those sort I was able to kind of work on with. Anything that would require more permissions or was a little bit more technical, I was able to do alongside Melissa or Stephen, given that we had that opportunity. Additionally, at the time, we were moving in between help desk systems. So now we have the new system, but before we had the old system. And during summer, I was able to sit in on those meetings, those vendor meetings, to decide which system we want to use, which one will meet our needs the best. And going through that process, which is something I don't think I would have experienced otherwise. It's not really something that I think about. So that to me was very helpful. Additionally, in the summer, we also had other interns for different parts of the company. So we would have intern meetings that weren't related to IT. We would have workshops for resumes, LinkedIn workshops, and we also had book club and various activities that were related to just us interns. So intern trips, intern dinners, and so on and so forth. And then here in the bottom right, we have monitoring device health and compliance. So our devices, being in a company, we have to monitor and make sure that our data is safe and that our devices are safe and healthy. We use a monitoring system called Ninja, which allows us to go in, and if any devices are faulty or have any issues, it was my job to look into that and see if I could reach out to that user and figure out why this device wasn't in compliance. For bigger projects I got to work on, during the summer, I did the user tech guide, which is about 80 pages of just random information that you might need. And ironically, I think the guide helped me more than anyone else because I had to write it. I had never used Teams before. I had never used Outlook on Mimecast, which is like our email monitoring system. So writing all that out and trying to see how I could best display that information, not only for other users, but for me, was really helpful in learning how everything operates here at AC. Additionally, since we were migrating help desk, that also meant migrating all of our inventory into a new system. So part of the summer was going around to Fresno and Visalia offices and gathering information on everyone and their assets so that we could have the most updated inventory possible when we migrate. Additionally, I was also part of a project folder email migration. So we took all of our project folders and migrated them into Procore so that they were more available for our field. And then for the winter, there was two main things that I did. So Poly installs, in case you don't know, those are our conference room systems. They're new, and so I was able to work alongside Stephen to set up 3 conference rooms, one in construction services, one in Fresno, and one in Visalia. And then one of my projects was reporting team stats using Microsoft BI. So this was something that Karen allocated to me, and she wanted me to just figure out a way to use this program called Power BI to refresh our stats. So going into a little bit more about that project. Typically in our old help desk stat system, what would happen is Heather set this up so that web help desk would give the data to an Excel spreadsheet and it would formulate graphs using that data. So each week when we got more tickets, it would update with that information. So it would look something like this. It's a little bit small, but basically it's just a graph detailing the amount of tickets open and closed over the course of some time. And there's also additional stats on top of this. But since we moved to a new system, I was tasked with trying to recreate the same concept from pulling the stats from Invigit and then visualizing them. So my process is a little bit different since I couldn't connect to the Invigit database itself. I had to query the stats and then put them into export it as an Excel spreadsheet and then put it into Power BI. So what is Power BI? It's basically just a software that's designed for making interactive data visualizations. So real quick, I'm going to step out of my presentation and show you the Power BI. So over in Teams, since it's not Microsoft native, we can access it through Teams. And this is the page that I set up. So here is all of our ticket stats currently. There's a lot less data because it's only from the past 2 months, since it is a very recent thing. But essentially, what you can do is you can click through here and interact with the display so that it shows you specific filters. So let's say I wanted to only look at tickets from 2022. If I just click the filter over here, it will filter the page to only show tickets and information from that year. You could also further this by saying, let's say I wanted to see the second week of December for 2022, and it would react to show you the specific report from then. Additionally, you can also take this and apply other filters to it. So that was our team as a whole, and this is individual. So it's the same report, but it's only with the stuff that Melissa has done. So, and you can do the same thing here where you just narrow it down to see the specific time fields. And then we have one for Stephen, and then for Karen, and for me. This works by adding, so every time I export a page from Invigit, I can just drop it over here in this folder called IT Metrics, delete the old one, drop it in, the new one, and it'll automatically update my dashboard. So even if there's new information or new times, it'll just automatically take care of all the formatting. So going back to the presentation. So it does this by making inferences based off the relationship of the data that you're putting in. So for example, here is the two tables that I used to create that portfolio. So essentially, on the right, we have our IT metrics. This is that Excel file taken from Invigit. So this has all of our agent information, the ticket information, and then I just created a new dynamic calendar table that updates dates whenever you pull in new information. So it takes the earliest date and the last date recorded, and it generates all the dates in between. And so from there, we just connect the date item to our creation date and our closing date on the ticket. And that allows the connection between the two tables. So you don't have to manually go through and try to figure out what week was this, what day was this, and so on and so forth. So now we get into the bulk, which is my lean proposal. I'm going to preface this one with my summer one, and then I will transition into my winter one. So I focused mainly on our inventory auditing process. But first I want to talk about why we should even care about our inventory. So it's our everyday tools that allow us to safely and reliably communicate, store and transfer information, as well as access it, and perform special tasks using software and applications. So any specific software that you might use on a job or in the office, we want to have access to that. And our inventory is our medium to do that. So not knowing if devices are stolen or lost can lead to risk. This kind of ties into safety on all fronts. For us at IT, this kind of falls into managing our devices and making sure that none of them are in critical condition or are a weakness. And then also they're just expensive, especially as we have more employees, we gain more employees, and we add more equipment per person. Typically, we have about 4 or 5 pieces of equipment per person, so it can add up pretty quick. So this is how we conduct our inventory audits usually. We would export our current assets to an Excel spreadsheet, and then we would go around at an office and talk to people, look at desks, and figure out what we can find from there and what's accurately, and compare that to our asset export to see if what we have is accurate. If it's not accurate, or if people aren't there when we are conducting this, we want to reach out to them individually, and then based off their feedback, compare and update our asset export again, and then update our asset management accordingly. So what I tried to do is for summer, I tried to lean down how we compared data, because as I said, we have a lot of employees and each employee might have many devices. So I approached this by looking at how Web Help Desk always exports the same format. It's always 50 columns in the same order or X amount of columns in the same order, depending on how many issues you have. So as long as we can make filters for one sheet, they can be applied to every sheet after that. So I wanted to make useful filters specifically on asset tag numbers, the client, the status, the asset type, and the location. So if you wanted to do this before, let's say I wanted to look up my devices, this is how I would probably do it, just without filters. I would you can't see it, but basically you would apply a filter. You would go through Excel, you would choose a filter, and you would...
You can't see it.
You can?
Yeah, it's just not showing.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Basically, you would go through and you would apply that filter, scroll down, and find that person. But with my macros, what I essentially did was created macros for those different filters that I talked about so that you could run this, type in the name you wanted to look or the fields that you wanted to filter on, and then it would automatically pull up those fields for you. Additionally, going through one by one and trying to compare what you recorded to what was in actuality can be tedious, trying to go back and forth between different sheets and finding the correct column that they're on, even with the macro filtering. So, sorry, let me just reset this. Okay. So basically, what I did is I created a different macro that compares 2 sheets side by side and then makes a third sheet with all the devices that don't match. So if there's no match, it's going to create a third sheet. And we can just see this here real quickly. So on the bottom left, I have my asset export, and then I have what I saw physically. So then I'm just going to click the unaccounted for devices, and it's going to generate a new sheet off to the side with just the devices that aren't accounted for.
Wow.
So although it's really cool, there are a lot of limitations to this. Specifically, working with macros can be tricky because they're based off the device that you're using them on. So typically they only apply to your desktop Excel. So trying to make these useful for even when I'm gone, when nobody's on my computer, I had to do some documentation, and it's a bit of a process to move the macros from Teams into your C drive and then using them in Excel. And you would have to do that. You couldn't just pull them up randomly on a different computer. So you would have to go through that process per computer. Additionally, you can't apply multiple filters at once. I don't think this would be an issue because if you were looking for a specific device or a specific client, those are probably our most searched for filters. The only time I could see this is if you were trying to look at maybe all of the monitors at Fresno or all of a type of device at a certain office. That's the only time I could really think where multiple filters might be really handy. And then the last thing is if there's duplicate rows, then the unaccounted for devices won't run properly. It won't register that there's duplicates or that there's an issue. And so that could be a problem. It's not going to break anything, but it just won't run properly. So for my second lean, it focuses more on a different step. So before I focused primarily on the comparison of the asset export, but for this one, I wanted to revamp how we reach out to people individually, because formatting a lot of emails, although it's not hard, it can be a little bit tedious. So for example, for this step, what you would do is you would pull up your asset export. This is going to look a little bit different because now we're working in Invigate. So, but it's the same concept. We still have a client, we still have their device, and we still have some other information about that device. So you would go through, you would choose a client, and then you would find all of the devices related to that person. And then you would create an email, put all of the body of the email, and then copy and paste their items into that email. And then you would rinse and repeat for every person. But what I am able to do is I created something that will allow you to just click a button and it'll do all of that for you. So I did this by using something called Power Automate. So Power Automate is also a Microsoft service that allows you to make automated workflows that incorporate other services. This is very, very similar to Monday. For those of you that don't know, Monday can also do automations, and it does a lot of scheduling stuff. I know that Heather and Emily use it very well, and I know that Destiny has also set up a lot of automations using it. So it's a similar concept to that. Essentially, what I want to do is I want to take an Excel spreadsheet, I want to format, filter, and prepare it, and then I want to send out an email and Outlook. So I'm going to show you that in Teams room. So we would go to Teams, we would go to Power Automate, and once it loads, you'll see that we have sorry, I don't know why.
Click on the Teams desktop icon.
So if we go to our flows, you'll see here that I have an inventory email list. So what this does is we're going to edit it. And basically, you can make automations here, but you can also do manually triggered. So this is going to be something that we want to manually do. It just based off what information we have. So we would navigate to our table within Teams. So here you'll see it goes to the group I'm in, the document, and then it'll go to the demo itself. It'll pull that table from the Excel. And then the steps below are what we talked about, the formatting. So it's going to get all the emails, and then it's going to return a list of distinct emails because we don't want to send 5 emails to one person with 1 device in each. We want to send 1 email with all of the devices listed. So these purple steps are basically doing that. It's going to take all of those emails, format it in the format that it needs to be to return the information. And then for each email, we're going to take the email, find the information within the Excel spreadsheet, and put it into a table. So here I want to show them just the user, the asset tag number, and the device that it is. And from there, we would add the step for Outlook, which basically just takes our email, attaches a subject line, creates a body for the email, and then it will put what we searched for before, and then send it. So if I test this real quick, and I run it, it's going to send me an email real quick. It's going to take a second here, but it's just give me a minute. It's a little slow because I'm presenting, but here it is. So here you'll see that this is the body that I formatted. It sent it to me because I have 2 items on there. And then it lists the item asset tag, who it was assigned to, and the device type. And then Melissa, since she's also on the list, also got an email right now with just her information. And yeah, you can basically use this. You can even share this to other people who have on teams so that they can reformat it to be whatever they need it to be. And essentially creating a bunch of automations that other people can use for whatever specific needs that arise. I'd like to talk about like the limitations again and future works for this, because I think it's important to critically look at what you've created in order to make it better. So one of the things is that emails are not inherently attached in the asset export. That's something you have to manually add, but this could be worked around by using Office scripts or VBA to essentially just attach the email list. So before, it's going to check on the name, and then it'll just create a new column and add all the emails to whoever it needs to be. As the list gets longer, it's also going to take longer for the flow to run. Right now, it's really fast because it only has 2 emails on it, but the longer it gets, it's going to take a little bit more time, but I still don't think it's going to be as long as if you had to copy and paste your way through every email. And you can actually make this process even more lean by creating another flow that reacts to a email back. So if you get a reply, it'll check the subject line, and then you can format it to do X, and then Y, and then a set of other processes so that you can automate it even further. So my biggest takeaways of my internship. The first one was interacting with your user base. As a computer science student, we make a lot of little labs and tests and stuff like that, but we don't really have anyone but ourselves to test it. I think it was really, really interesting and like a very valuable experience for me to be able to be face to face with people who I was helping, their problems, and seeing how they use what we try to manage and what we try to provide. Additionally, connecting the theoretical to actuality. So I've taken a cybersecurity class and I took a networking class last semester. I think that, in thinking about it, you might think like, oh, phishing, you learn about phishing, you learn about safety, you learn about how networks work, but you don't have any actual representations of that. You might have like your home router and your computer, but working in a company setting on a business scale is completely different. And that was very, very good for my last class, networking, because I was able to map what I was learning to what I had worked with over the summer. Cool. And then functionality through documentation. So this actually helped me a lot, because when I did my macros during the summer, I then took 3 or 4 month break and then came back and was like, I don't know what I did. So luckily I had documented everything. Karen is very adamant about documentation and it really helps. So having that there for me was very, very beneficial. And additionally, it kind of helped with working remote because I wouldn't have to bug Stephen or Karen or Melissa about what steps I should be taking to solve this specific problem because we already had documentation on it. So I could try my hand at it myself with some guided direction. And then if I really needed help, I could reach out to them. But for the most part, it was there for me to utilize. And then identifying processes and repetitive tasks to improve workflow. This is pretty much what I did for my lean. So I really enjoy looking at our processes here and how we might be able to improve them. That's something that was really, really interesting to me. I think out of all the books from Book Club, 2 Second Lean was my favorite, even though it wasn't like the most, it didn't have the most volume or the most context or the most storytelling. Like just the concept of like shaving 2 seconds off of a process every single time until it finally gets to something very, very quick and very efficient was really interesting to me. And then lastly, working within a team setting. I said it before and I would like to reiterate it. I really like working within the IT team. I felt like I was a part of the team from the beginning. And it was a very good experience to be in a team and feel like a contributing member, as well as seeing how a functional team works when you have distinct people. Because like Melissa is very different than Stephen, and Karen is very different than Stephen as well. So it was like really fun to be involved in that way.
It's your chromosome.
So yeah,
that was fun with you though.
That was my favorite part. So thank you. I would like to express my gratitude for AC again because they were really accommodating with me. They made my internship here as smooth as possible, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. So thank you guys.
Well done.
Feel free to ask any questions as well.
Oh, yeah.
Sam, how about you also tell them the other 2 Second Lean project you weren't able to finish, but we have a starting point that will help Melissa out.
Oh yeah. So remember how before I was talking about how you could share that Power Automate script and then somebody else could use it, refactor it for what their needs are. So we have another one called our mobile iron compliances, and that's just a list of all the devices that are out of compliance and who owns them. So we could take that same script as before, and we would want to revamp it a little bit by CCing manager list as well. But like I said, we could just combine the manager list with all the names and the emails into one, and then use that same script to loop through and contact everyone, so that she doesn't have to go and write out every email.
Yeah.
Every time.
We've got a 4th one in talent. We're ready to launch, Karen. That is, we want to export from Podio all of the email addresses and candidate names of folks that we're rejecting, and then send individual rejection. And right now, Jasmine does that one at a time. And God, thankfully, she hasn't hung herself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's definitely doable. We can explore it in Monday as well, because I know Destiny is very, very good at making Monday automations. And I think she's even going to have another Pepsi soon. So I'm sad I won't be able to see that one.
Ready for questions, Michelle?
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone have questions online?
Mhm.
I do.
Aside from day-to-day tasks, what was the most fun part?
What was the most fun part? Every time I came to Bakersfield, that was the most fun part. Like, even though I was okay with working on my own, it was always like so much, there's a lot you miss out on not being with your team, like the daily banter and yeah, Taco Bell. Just a lot of those those little moments that really make the difference.
AI.
So every time I got to come down, I was always really excited and I always left feeling really happy. So
Oh, very cool. When you ran the IT help desk ticket data, what trends did you see?
well, it's a little bit, I do know that we're increasing how many tickets come in and how many tickets get closed.
Yeah.
Like that's been a trend for the last 3 years. It's been like increasing so much. I know that before in our old web help desk, we had more information on like what tickets were directly related to. So if it was a software issue, if it was a hardware issue.
Yeah.
I think we have, I can't remember it specifically, but I think it's a lot of software issues and those like analyzing which issues are at the forefront. Actually, Melissa is able to in Invigit create workflows now. So those workflows, looking at the tickets that are most common,
Yeah.
you can create a workflow so that it's easier to go through that process of figuring out what's wrong.
And you said you spent some time on a user guide, is that?
Yes.
creating a user guide, so now, having the advantage of being able to look backward, if you were to make an improvement to that user guide, what would it be?
Maybe adding more stuff to it. So right now it just has like basic information about Excel and things like that. But I think what I would do is actually pull some tips that I've learned working in Power Automate and working with Power BI, and then also pulling from Melissa's tips and tricks and adding more like little details here and there that aren't intuitive, but they're like really helpful, right? So like key commands are one of them. Key commands are very, very, very nice.
What's been the project that was most challenging to you throughout, like, whether it was summer, you want to work on something like this, or even, you know you're only here for a couple weeks, but what was the biggest challenge you faced?
Actually, the Power BI one was a really big challenge because it was like 3 weeks of despair and 1 week of like, oh my god, things are like working now. Because like I was like I never worked with Power BI before, so and it's not intuitive since it's like relational. Like you kind of have to, it's not laid out for you. You have to like make your own inferences about how it can be used and the best way to use it. And that was like a huge learning curve. Like in the beginning, it was like, okay, another day goes by and I don't know what I'm doing. So, and then towards the end, it was like everything started falling into pieces, and I was like, I don't even have enough time to put everything together. And then like it was just a mad dash. It was a mad dash.
Yeah, very cool. You said you also did the installs on the Poly systems over the summer. So how are the Poly systems going to improve AC's video conference abilities?
I think it'll improve it a lot because it's Teams native. So everyone has already begun to be like familiar with using Teams, and this Poly system looks exactly the same as how you would look on your computer when you open up Teams. Lifesize didn't have this. You kind of had to jump through a little bit of hoops to get to what you wanted to do. This way is a lot more intuitive for users. So I think it'll be a lot less frustrating as they familiarize themselves with it. And it also makes it easier to do like Zoom calls and things that aren't Teams native, because the Poly system can be used as like a direct device for your microphone and your camera and your audio. So
neat. Okay. How should AC prepare to have more remote employees? What are some tips and tricks that we need to really embrace?
That's a good question, because a lot of like our files and stuff are stored like here. And even last night I was trying to reach Jefferson and I was like, oh wait, I can't reach Jefferson from my house. So I think that moving all of like our information from Jefferson, it's a lot because it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
But kind of slowly but surely migrating that into like Teams, the email, the project folder migration into Procore. So moving those things that have been in place and putting them into an easier accessible spot, and then just having people familiarize themselves with where they need to go to get the information that they need. I think I'm going to turn back to Destiny's Monday here, because her process on the solar, it kind of cuts out the middleman. You don't need to like ask someone like, hey, did you turn this in, or like, where's that file that you had. It's all in one place, and that really streamlines everyone's ability to work when they're not directly face to face with somebody or when they're not in direct contact with somebody. So I would say making those changes is lead us the most success.
You mentioned that you took a class just this last quarter and that your internship here helped you. What was it that helped you and how well did you do in that class?
I did, okay, so I got an A in that class, but basically it was a networking class, and I had never worked, even in my summer internship, I didn't really work with routers, but we would do a lot of ping tests, IP ping, reaching printers. I didn't know you could do this, but you would just take the IP address of the printer and put it in your browser, and then it's like a portal. And that actually directly helped me on this one assignment because we had to reach like our home router. And it's the same process. You find the IP address on your router, the password and the login settings, and then you use that through the browser to access your router. So it was like a direct, I was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing with this. Yeah, so.
That doesn't work here, so don't even try.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to know how that helped you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else online have questions? Heather? Right? Karen?
Sam, what was the one thing that you dreaded in having to work on or to deal with?
Well, there's probably two things. The first one is just working on printers in general. The one in this room, the one in Monica's office went out, and I swear I spent like 3 days doing everything I could to try to get it to work, and I had to leave the internship knowing that it still wasn't working, and that was really, really, really frustrating. So I was like, I don't understand why this won't work.
You touched on you did get some server hardware experience.
Yeah, there's another time where we had to pull the server out of Fresno, and I had never worked with like a Blade server. I have like worked on like little computers and stuff, but it's never been like, it's only for me, so if I break it, it's all right, but I don't want to break this. So we had a little setup where basically I was like Steven's hands, and he was just telling me what to do, and I just remember being like the gentlest touch, and I wouldn't. He was like, "Is it jammed?" And I was like, "I don't know, it's not coming out easily." And it was just because I wasn't pushing hard enough. I was like too afraid to mess with it. And then another challenge for me, I'm pretty introverted and I'm pretty shy. So even though I'm like friendly, it was hard for me to chase down people and be like, "Why is your device not compliant?" So putting myself out there, it was never an issue because the people at AC have been really, really receptive and like really helpful and really patient. But like in the beginning, I was like, oh man, I have to do what? Like I have to chase down people, and Karen's like, yeah, call them. I'm like, no. but it's better now. So yeah.
I missed one though. Monitors. Do you like?
Oh yeah, no, I don't like monitors. There's like always an issue with monitors. It's printers and monitors are like the bane of my existence now. They're like never want to work, and then all of a sudden they'll work.
Stop. Yeah.
Like the first ticket I got when I came back for the winter was a monitor issue, and I spent like 2 days like, okay, well let's switch out the cord, let's switch out the docking station, and then I didn't hear from them, and then they were like, oh yeah, it works now. I was like, what?
So you gotta ask these two how long they kept that in the help desk queue for you.
Immediate sign to me.
Heather, any words of wisdom or thoughts for Sam?
I mean, words of wisdom are keep going. My question is, now that you've kind of, you made a great point, there's a difference between what you learn in school and like the real world and like what actually happens and things like that. And from talking to you and like, watching this presentation, you've had a pretty well-rounded, experience with IT. I'm curious now at, you're going to school and being in the real world, if any of your directions have changed, if anything stood out to you that you want to pursue more, or if there were things that you saw happening within the group, or even different parts of AC that you were like, that seems really interesting. I'd really like to pursue that. Or I wish I got to work on, X.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits, well, originally I didn't even think I would be in IT. This wasn't something that I even considered because I just felt a little bit out of my comfort zone. Like when you do computer science, it's usually not like the hardware aspect of it. That's usually more like computer engineering and working with the devices themselves. So it kind of opened up a lot of opportunities in my mind because I was able to have something to relate it to. And I was like, oh, you know what? This is actually pretty interesting. Like, just from the experiences that I had, I still kind of, even though it's well-rounded here, I feel like there's also a lot more things I can experience, like with software development and like DevOps, like what you do. Specifically, when you guys were talking about track, that was very interesting to me, like how you built that up from the ground up to accomplish some problems that you had or to come up with solutions to issues that you were facing. That was really interesting to me. And even like IT has done that too with implementing teams and implementing new systems and stuff like that. So I'm glad that I was able to be here for like the growth of it, because I think being able to work on something and work on it from start to finish, because usually in software, if you go to a company, it's going to be something that's already established. And then you're just doing what work is assigned to you. But here it's been like more of a variety. Like you don't know what you need to do until it comes up that you're like, okay, well, I got to figure out how to do this. And I think that's
Story
like,
of my life.
Yeah. That's like really rewarding in its own way. Like I'm sure it has its fair share of frustrations. Like Power BI, it was like 40 weeks of like just absolute sadness. And then but then like when you actually accomplish it and you can see like its effects being used, it feels the most gratifying in my opinion. So I feel like that's one of the takeaways as well.
You, Frank, any final thoughts?
Sure, Samantha's still going to be down for her 6 a.m. wake-up calls when she goes back to Long Beach State. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll just automate some
That's right.
response.
All right. Well, I want to hear one story that from your internship, like funny, your best experience within our team.
Within our team? Let's see. I'll go by person. So I'll say Steven for last because he's like best. He's like we're both like goofy, and it's just we're probably a terrible combo because we just yeah. But so with Karen, one of my like founding experiences with her, and this has been like something that's ongoing, but was her willingness to just teach me what I didn't know. Like if I came in, she would, give me a question, and then I was like, well, I don't know about this part. And then she would be like, let's look it up. And then she would sit there with me and we would look up what that is. And if we didn't know something in that part, we would look that up. And it was like this train of like just looking up stuff and then reverse learning it that way. And I feel like that really, it was fun for me. And it really solidified my place in the team because I felt like I could go to somebody and like they would sit there and work with me on everything. And then my first experience out of all of them was when I met Melissa on the first day and she set everything up for me. And like, even though it was like a little bit awkward, like I felt really good meeting, like I liked Melissa from the get-go. So it was like, okay, well, regardless of what Karen and Steven are like, at least I know Melissa will help me and she'll be there. And she's continued to just always help me with everything. I think I probably asked Melissa the most questions. It's like, Melissa, how do I do this? Or like, Melissa, did you do this or do I have to do it? And then with Steven, the best was when we were setting up the Polycon system at CS and we went for lunch. And we just went to go get Taco Bell for lunch. And they gave us a receipt and it has like a prompt, like write a review. And, you could be entered to win like $500 or something. So at the time, during the summer, I showed Steven this AI website that if you put in a prompt, it would generate pictures based off what it thinks from the internet. It would just take in a bunch of pictures. And they were terrible. They were terrible, but hilarious. And then during the winter, he told me about an AI where you write a prompt and it will create this eloquent story about whatever prompt you put in. So we had all of the information we need. We had Taco Bell, we had our person's name, and we had ChatGPT. So we came back and we wrote a review and submitted it, but it was all AI generated. And we just made up this insane story about how he protected the people's tacos by, using sauce packets as weapons. And that pretty much sums up me and Steven right there. That's about as true to us as you'll get. So
Nice.
Okay, anyone else have any final thoughts or questions before we end the call?
Well done.
No, thank you, good job.
thank you.
Great job.
Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yeah.
Nice job, Sam.
Great job, Sam.
Thank you. Woohoo.
It's food time.
It's food time.
I at least suggest you guys check ChatGPT out.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I,
It's
Samantha
not-
showed me or Karen? Someone showed me.
Karen probably did.
And I was like, man.
Chat GPT.
You can like, help me.
GPT.
It'll write stories.
Yeah,
You can
I
use
should
it for
totally go
acting.
to college now. I
Yeah.
should go to college now.
I know.
I would totally not ever have to read. I mean, I didn't read. I only read for 2 classes in 4 years. But
So for Christmas, I wrote my mom a letter and I was getting stumped on what do I say? Just something sweet, right? So I put in like questions, like what would you say to express